Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start the session. As you know, my name is Sonia Livingstone. On the program, it's indicated that we should have started at 8:15 or 8:15 to 8:30 with a recap of yesterday. We're not going to do that. We are starting with the main session today for the scene to be set by a guest speaker. I'll introduce her now. So welcome to each and everyone. Thank you to Alma for setting up everything, and thank you for Sonia for patiently waiting for us to connect there on the other side. There are so many screens in front of me, I don't know where to look. So if I sort of look left or right and I don't make eye contact with you, apologies. It is just wonderful to be in your presence this morning. So I asked Sonia to please share a CV of hers with me so that I can introduce her. And she was kind enough to present or to give me a summarized version of her CV. And that says something about the person. It is a person who has achieved so much, but it is also a person, although I haven't met her in person, she is someone who, to her, it's about the moment that she will start speaking to us and sharing her thoughts, her research, and engaging with us. And I think that is something very special of a person who has achieved so much. So thank you, Sonia, for doing that. So Professor Sonia Livingstone is a professor in the Department of Media and Communications at the London School of Economics and Political Science. She has published 23 books on media audiences, media literacy, children and young people's risks, opportunities and rights in the digital environment, including, and I'm going to only read one title, Parenting for a Digital Future, How Hopes and Fears about Technology Shape Children's Lives. And then I have to read a second title as well, and Digital Media Use in Early Childhood, Birth to 6. Since founding the EC-funded 33-country EU Kids Online Research Network and the Global Kids Online Network, Sonia has served as Special Advisor to the House of Lords Select Committee on Communications, Expert Advisor to the Council of Europe, President of the International Communication Association, Chair of the LSE's Truth, Trust and Technology Commission, Executive Board Member of the UK Council for Child Internet Safety, and she's advised many others, including the European Commission, European Parliament, OECD, International Telecommunications Union, and UNICEF. I find it very important for us as well, talking about children's rights, that she supported the drafting of the General Comment 25 on children's rights in relation to the digital environment. And then there are a number of other achievements. She's involved in so many other universities. I'm just going to summarize her summarized version, or the summarized version of her CV. She's been awarded 6 honorary doctorates, among other prizes and awards. She's also an Officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE. She's received research grants totaling more than 6 million British pounds. She has published, over and above the 23 books, 127 peer-reviewed articles. That is beyond amazing. And over and above that, what I did last night was also to Google. Yes, I can Google. And it is amazing to see her presence on social media as well. So Sonia, thank you for making yourself available and finding the time. Where do I look there? For finding the time to be here today. It is much appreciated. It is such a privilege for us to have you as our speaker today. And that is all that I'm going to say for now. Also, thank you for making sure that Kim arrived safely and she's with us, and I can make eye contact with her. She is here. And she attends all the sessions. I can report on that as well. So you should be very, very proud of her. So that's all that I'm going to say now. And the session actually goes from 8:30 until 9:15. And I'm sure that you have made time available for questions, because I'm sure there will be many questions. So Sonia, thank you. I'm going to sit down, and I so look forward to what you're going to share with us. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sonia. And thank you very much to the conference organisers, Admark, Sonia, others. I'm really sorry that I can't be with you today. A room full of people committed to children's rights and thinking about the digital environment. I really wish I could be sharing the moment with you, but we have technology and I'm glad I can be here in this way. And as you say, I'm delighted that my colleague, Dr. Kim Sylvander, could be with you. And I look forward to hearing from her about everything that has been said yesterday and today when she returns to London. So as I think Kim will already have said in the opening to the event, and as you can see from my title slide, the many things I've done in my career have led me to a particular point, and have led me to the point where I'm really doing everything within a child rights framework. Those in the room know what that means, what that involves, and kind of how it positions us as researchers in relation to the many debates that are going on, and the children's rights in relation to the digital world is really at the moment at the forefront of many minds. There are many children's rights issues and problems in the world. Digital is but one of them. It's where I'm going to focus this morning. Despite the many reasons for pessimism about the world, I've offered you an optimistic title. How can we build a child rights respecting digital world? And especially, I thought I'd reflect today on how we can move with research and from research to questions of practice. And I'm going to focus on two kinds of practice. Firstly, questions of regulation, and secondly, questions of design. And both have significant implications for a very fast developing and growing digital industry, whose complexity, I think, takes some effort and investigation to kind of fully grasp. From a child rights perspective, of course, I'm also going to try to speak beyond my UK setting, though the research I'm talking about and the research we do in our centre is sometimes UK focused, sometimes internationally focused, sometimes focused in countries in the global south, and I think perhaps some of our partners are also listening or in the room with you today. So the Digital Futures for Children Centre, as I think you've heard, is situated at the London School of Economics and Political Science. It's funded by and partners with the Five Rights Foundation, and that kind of captures what we do, which is to bring evidence and theory to advocacy and change. So I don't need to tell anyone here, I think, about the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but I will just frame my remarks by something that I think is always helpful to say, which is that in many circumstances of research, policy and practice, to focus, people inevitably focus on 1, 2, 3, maybe rights. And of course that's necessary. We have to concentrate. But one of the extraordinary strengths of a child rights framework is that it is holistic. So to focus on child protection, which many policymakers and practitioners around the world are now doing, to focus on child protection online in a rights respecting way must also be to have an eye to children's participation, to the implications of the protection strategies we build for their learning, for their sources of help and remedy, for their evolving capacities and so forth. To focus on education, we have a work stream on EdTech and kind of the digitalization of education. To focus there, asks significant questions about the nature of learning and the nature of education towards children's full development. But of course, it also has implications for their safety, again, for their evolving capacities, for their health and well-being and so forth. So that holism, I think, is vital, but truly challenging. And so I just like to put up the convention to remind me of all the different elements. But as Sonia said in kindly introducing me, I was part of the drafting group supporting the Committee on the Rights of the Child on General Comment 25. And that document has become the kind of framework and the North Star, if you like, perhaps I should say the Southern Cross, thinking about how a kind of first port of call, really, for thinking how in this challenging new world of everything digital, where do we get our guidance, and what are the kind of tried and trusted principles of children's rights jurisprudence, experience and practice that we can take with us as we face whatever is the new challenge. Today it's generative intelligence, AI, generative artificial intelligence. So, you know, we're always faced with a new challenge, but we have a firm basis, and that's so that's my kind of framework for today. A child rights perspective is grounded in children's voice and consultation. So I would just point you here to the very substantial consultation that was done with children and young people around the world to inform General Comment 25. It was led by Amanda Third at the University of Western Sydney and involved many child rights organisations in contributing to that process. Sitting at the other end with the committee and listening to the wealth of insights and recommendations from children, it was an interesting challenge to kind of reflect that thoroughly in the general comment. And I hope when you read the general comment, you will see that children's voices are there, both as direct quotations, which was a significant move for the committee, but also in the kinds of insights that are there, the insistent reminder that children and young people are differently positioned from the adults who make decisions about them in so many ways, and that their voices on the digital is particularly pertinent because often they are the advance guard, the pioneers, and sometimes I fear the ones that discover the problems before the adults have properly recognised them. So those voices, I've put up a little image there also of part of a consultation we did in the UK, and before or during most of our work, we try to find time to go into schools or into homes or to invite young people to come and talk to us, and always ask those kind of double questions, really. How do they see the digital world, and what do they want to change? What are their proposals for us? Second kind of framing insight into the general comment, it is grounded in the voices of children. It's also grounded in evidence from and with children. And I've put here a screenshot of the research database, the global research database that we've been building at the Digital Futures for Children Centre, where we're trying very hard with our limited but particular resources to create a research evidence base which is not just the usual research from the global north, but tries to be more inclusive and represent the diversity of children's experience and of researchers around the world, particularly in the global south. And the second thing we try to do in there, if you go and have a little search, is make sure that all the resources are open access, and that we have explained in the notes section for each resource how it is we see that the research specifically relates to children's rights in the digital environment. And we've made that bridge because it's not always easy to read research about all kinds of dimensions of children's lives and see which are the rights that it relates to, what are the ways in which this helps support or support a child's right, or perhaps complicate the realization of a child's right. So we've tried to build that bridge. I also wanted to show you this slide just to invite you very warmly to contribute to the research database by sending us suggestions for the research that you are doing. And I know that Kim here with you today is very much listening for new and interesting research that we can then, I hope, help to promote. So I said I'd talk today about by design approaches. Within that framing of moving forward in realising children's rights in relation to the digital environment with that holistic, evidence-based, consultative approach in mind. And I thought I'd focus on the idea of by design because it has become enormously popular in policy circles, I think internationally, over just the last 5 to 8 years, perhaps. And suddenly we want everything by design. So we say it very often, we don't always kind of pause to reflect on what really that means. And I want to suggest that it's both necessary. I find it a very welcome move that we're now thinking by design, but it also brings new challenges. And I think we need to kind of properly recognise and reflect what those new challenges are. Broadly, as we try to move from an approach which has dominated in policy circles for the last 20 years, perhaps the history of the internet. And the dominant approach has been industry innovates, governments are slow to catch up, children are in the vanguard and often meet the problems. And when we discover the problems, in retrospect, once the products are already designed and in the marketplace, we then try to put things right. And we come in with kind of retrospective regulation or retrospective programs to try to make things better. And I am particularly thinking about the harms, the risks of harm linked to the digital world. I can see that in the efforts of governments to promote access and education for children around the world so that they can use digital tools, there is some more advanced thinking, but it is still with the products already made. The products have been developed and designed and put on the market, and then the governments come in and say, can we bring this into our classrooms? How can we make this more widely available? How can we overcome the inequalities of access or the problems of use? So a by design approach is to acknowledge that this has been problematic, because this has meant that the industry, commercial, with its own business interests at heart, has dictated the terms and the nature of the digital world. And then the public sector and the civil society has had to kind of adapt and make do and work out how it can serve other interests, including children's interests. So I do think this is a radical move, that by design is everywhere. And the by design phrase has had its own interesting history. So it began very much as, knocked my computer. Where am I going? There. It's had its own very interesting history, beginning with what the management folk call the hygiene factors, efforts to deal with privacy, safety, security. And so safety by design and privacy by design are probably the best known of the, forgive my messing with my slides, are probably the best known by design approaches. And they have become standard, I think, in industry circles, not implemented always, but expected. The idea that design could be positively risky came after, and I've put here 5 rights risky by design, but we hear many other. We hear now of persuasive by design, of nudging by design, problems by design, profit by design, or exploitation by design, a whole series of problems that we can now see in civil society have been built into the products. Finally, in my narrative, from dealing with the hygiene factors to recognizing that the technologies itself designed in problematic ways, we see civil society movements which try to kind of harness the idea of design for good. So movements like Designed with Kids in Mind, Designed with Us, Not About Us, and so forth. Design has become the kind of rallying cry also for the child rights community. So I'm going to say a bit more about what design is. I think the series of whistleblowers, I've put Facebook's first whistleblower from a few years ago here, but actually we had another one just this week. We can see some of what it means to say that the risks are built in by design, that the CEO at the head of the company knows, has been told, internal research has made clear that the design features and functions of a platform are known to cause problems for children. That has somehow been covered up, not dealt with, not addressed. And the challenge for civil society, in a sense, is not simply to seek remedy for children, but also to propose the better design. And I think this is not a straightforward and simple task. We know when something is wrong for children. We know, in a sense, how to put things right for them, though we don't always do it or have the funds for it. We child rights academics, advocates, don't necessarily know how to better design a platform, how to better design an algorithm, how to conceptualize a large language model in a way that does good rather than promotes risk. So it's a new skill set for us, and I think we are all rising to the challenge very fast, but it is a new skill set. And it raises it invites us to make new kinds of partnerships, really, with computer scientists, with technologists, with those in other spheres who really understand the inside of very opaque business models and very opaque and complex platforms and digital ecosystems. And I wanted to show you our report on child rights impact assessment, just to say that for a child rights community, a simple answer is available, which is to say we may not understand everything about algorithms and artificial intelligence and platforms, but we do know that if every innovation before it reaches the market has done a child rights impact assessment, which is consultative, which is expert informed, which is put in the public domain, then many of the problems that we see today would not have occurred. And so, I do think a child rights approach has the one-stop shop answer. It's just that businesses broadly are not doing child rights impact assessments, and governments broadly are not demanding that they do, because they don't want to slow the pace of innovation and slow the kind of global digital arms race that everyone is caught up in trying to be have its own Silicon Valley. A couple of years ago, the DFC commissioned a piece of research on the impact of regulation on children's digital lives. And this was our effort to understand whether some of the regulations that embed by design solutions are working. So in a number of countries, we can see regulations coming in that call for by design solutions, which means anticipatory. Before you reach the market, you anticipate the effects of your product and you ensure that you have designed it to be better, not to be risky by design. So we see this, and our research here was based in Europe, in the new European and British regulation for privacy and safety as it affects children. And I will leave you to read the report if you like. I summarise the findings as the glass being half full and half empty. In other words, we can find ways, we can see ways in which when regulation comes in, businesses begin redesigning their products to be more privacy respecting and more safety respecting for children. But we can also see lots of ways in which they don't. And it's a judgment now which ones are more important. Of course, we have to remain very concerned about the privacy and safety that's not being improved, even as we can celebrate some of the improvements that are genuinely being made. Again, I want to pose the question to you. Which kinds of changes do we want platforms to make that we can show will bring benefits to children? And this is a research question as well. If algorithms are tweaked, if report abuse buttons are added, if more parent and child information is provided just in time, are these the kinds of features that will help? If we introduce the controversial age assurance, is that the necessary change that will make the difference? Again, our task becomes one, in a way, of doing industry's work for it, of understanding design and the options and coming up with better alternatives. And I'm sure everyone here has been asked, okay, I see the problems with how things are. You tell me what would be better. And that's the challenge. We are now kind of following up on that research and trying to take it forward. Back to my original kind of point about a holistic approach, you will, I hope, immediately recognise that this is really, by design approaches so far, have largely focused on eliminating problems, intrusions of privacy, problems with safety and so forth. That's not addressing the full range of children's rights. That's not all the benefits, and I want to come back to that point at the end. Okay, I'm going to move a little faster through my story now. I kind of really wanted to kind of pose to you those challenges of what a by design solution might look like, and also perhaps to raise some questions about whether we're putting too much weight on those questions. Okay, I would just acknowledge the moment. This is not a good moment to be arguing for any kinds of improvements in children's digital lives, because at the top levels of both governments and industry, especially in the United States, which affects us all, but also internationally, there is very serious pushback. And the pushback is sufficiently serious that I honestly, I think it's very hard to call whether in 5 years' time, despite all our energies and all our inspiration and good ideas, I don't know if things will be better or worse in 5 years. The resistance from industry and from many governments is very, very significant. Some of that resistance is being played out specifically in relation to child rights advocacy. And I just wanted to give you an example of some work that we've been doing on the concept of the best interests of the child. So on this slide, I first offered you the best interests of the child, Article 3.1 in the Convention, as understood by General Comment 25, which sets out, as you would expect, a kind of embracing and focused call for states to respect the child's best interests, particularly against the ways in which commercial interests infringe children's rights. And what's fascinating about the phrase, the best interests of the child, is that it's being written into regulation around the world. I've given you an example here from the British Age-Appropriate Design Code and also the European Digital Services Act. But we've been tracing how that concept is being written in more than children's rights. So I think you'll find that if you look at regulation in different parts of the world, something we're also doing now, there are more references to the best interests of the child than there are to respecting all children's rights. And in our research, we've been trying to understand why mentioning children's rights seems a red flag, a step too far for many governments. But the best interests of the child, everyone can agree upon. Except it becomes part of the space of contestation. So Meta, which you may or may not regard as a rights-respecting company with child rights-respecting products, I do not regard it that way, but it has embraced with enthusiasm its best interests of the child framework, and it promotes it in as many public spaces and to governments as it possibly can. Meta, they say, respects the best interests of the child. The framework, when you read it, is a rather limited document that emphasizes warning children about problems and providing parental controls. And more importantly, Meta, along with many other companies, funds organizations like Net Choice, who go into the courtrooms and challenge any of these regulations that are trying to bring about better children's rights in the digital world. So I give you one quote here where Net Choice has challenged the Californian Age-Appropriate Design Code, saying the best interests of the child is, quote, an inherently subjective term that is too vague and too dangerous for companies to follow because they might find themselves facing too great a penalty. So a child rights concept that for very good reasons was embedded in regulation as a win for child rights advocates has become weaponized as the very means by which child rights respecting regulation is contested. So here's our report, should you wish to read it. So maybe just to pull back a little at this point, I think we need to recognise the complexity of this phrase that I've been throwing about, the digital environment, which is, as says in the general comment, constantly changing, which is difficult for regulation to address, constantly integrating multiple different kinds of technology and practice, which is difficult for regulation to address. And so, you know, I kind of have noted what it is that regulation can and maybe can't do and where we could work further. But I also want to point to all the other actors who are involved in shaping that digital environment. And I haven't seen a really brilliant summary. So here's my kind of informal summary. Somehow, I invite us, and perhaps you are already doing this, not only to think about addressing our research and arguments to the state or to the state, but also to all those other actors who are the designers, the developers, the product managers, the marketers, the people who do the user experience, the legal professionals in startups and mid-sized companies and big and so forth. If we're really serious about a by design approach, all of those people with their engineering backgrounds or their legal backgrounds or their marketing backgrounds or their design and development experience, all of those people in some way need to be brought under the umbrella of children's rights concerns. And child rights moves from just a compliance issue, which is how regulation positions it, to something that should be endemic in the company. And that is a huge challenge. These are people who don't really know anything about children's rights, may never heard of children's rights, even human, well, they've probably heard of human rights, but they don't know much about children's rights. And they may not know much about children because they may be developing products for everyone or for the market, and children happen to use them in ways that they may or may not understand. So a by design approach is bringing in a whole new set of actors into our purview, and very, very many different kinds of people with their own training, their own professionalism, their own standards, their own expectations. It's what sounded like a good idea. Let's make products rights respecting before they reach the market rather than after, when it's too late, actually brings its own challenges. We have learned from our research with product designers a bit about how they work. They talk about the double diamond of design and development, a kind of discovery phase when they're looking for ideas, a definitional phase when they nail down what they do, a development phase when they are trying out solutions, and a delivery phase when they put something in the market. Somehow we want a child rights sensibility to the different professionals working at those different levels. Of course, nothing is so straightforward. The product design these days is, quotes, agile or iterative or complex. Nothing goes directly to plan. And the designers and developers that we've been talking to are very clear that children's rights considerations are far from their top of mind and far from their desk. And when they focus on what a child's rights respecting product or service might look like, they have a whole set of new difficulties. What do we mean by children's rights? How do we implement it? It's expensive. The boss doesn't care or want it. It doesn't make money because you've had to do all these expensive additions and so forth. So in our work, we have been identifying the different market conditions and social conditions that really shape the designers and developers world. This work was done with Kurukai Potong for UNDP originally, and then we have embraced it and conceived it within the DFC also. There are many factors. I'm not going to elaborate them all. We've put them in our report, and I invite you to think about the challenge for the ordinary, everyday, maybe small producer or small cog in a very big wheel who are really trying to, willing, sometimes, interested, often, able, resourced, no, for the most part not. Okay, so I am coming to the end of my time. I just wanted to tell you a little story where we have tried to make a bit of a difference. And here we thought we would have a go at the idea of play and the idea that children's right to play, one of the positive rights, if you like, not a hygiene factor, has become a problem in the digital world. And many parents, especially around the world, are very reluctant for their children to play online, even though they love the idea of their child playing. So the point of this story, I think, for the present minute in my talk, is twofold, which is to say we began with a consultation with children, parents and experts about what play could be. I always begin with the cardboard box because I think in every part of the world where children have sufficient resources to get a gift, the joke is often that they prefer playing with the box than the gift. And the box, because it could be anything. It's open for their free imagination. We tried to ask, where is the cardboard box for children to play with in the digital world? What is that open space? What is that world of possibility? Can we design better for their play? And we reviewed the literature and we held a consultation. And we ended up with a tool which designers have told us they find valuable. And the tool is a kind of a design card set. And designers told us many things about how they work. And what they particularly were clear about was they don't want researchers to tell them what to do, but they value our questions. And especially they value the questions if they're also questions that young people have been asking. So they wanted a kind of provocative set, not how to design a game for equity, but what would your game look like if girls felt equally welcome to boys? Or if children of different ages had their needs attended to? Ask them the questions, give them the card set, invite them to use it. It's an idea. And where I then want to kind of reach with that thought is to think about doing that for children's rights more generally. If I had another 15 minutes, I would give you a parallel case for EdTech and how EdTech could be designed better. It's something, as you can see, we've been doing lots of work on thinking, is it regulation that works for EdTech to make sure that the technology supports and enables children's learning, or is it design? I'm going to leave it there and really end with where I've been trying to get to, which is the idea that it's the whole set of children's rights, all of the rights that could be, should be designed better. And in our 11 principles of child rights by design, we have synthesized the substantive articles of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, so we can map them on. And we have synthesized also the text of the General Comment 25. And we've done what the designers told us, which is to ask the provocative question, not tell them what to do. But the idea they also said is, please put it up. We want something we can put on the office wall, on the designer's wall. A prompt as a reminder. Have you treated all children inclusively and fairly and thought about the diverse circumstances of their lives? Have you consulted children in making your product? Do you comply with the relevant laws? We found many designers don't even know what the relevant laws are. Does your product or indeed your policy promote children's well-being, support their play and development? So we just tried to make it like easy questions, accessible questions, but ones that, if looked at in the round, would encompass all of children's rights and would allow designers in a very accessible way to make their products better. And in our toolkit online, we have lots of suggestions and guidance and so forth, as you can imagine. So we're now kind of doing deep dives into those different principles. As you can see, we've done a lot of work on consultation. Kim, I think, in this conference has been talking about ideas of age appropriate and what age appropriate looks like in a digital world. We're thinking about how effective regulation can be, but also how much better design can be, specifically in relation to play and education. There's a lot more to do, and we will continue. I know that you will continue, and I'm really excited that there is a community here that is working together in many ways on these challenges of child rights by design in policy and in product development. I'm speaking here for many people, so my last slide is really to acknowledge and to thank the DFC team. There are even more people than we could picture here who are involved in the work, but these have been very important actors and contributors to our work, and I will at this point thank them. Thank you for your attention, and stop talking.